Picture this for a moment. Every month, you carefully set money aside. You skip small luxuries, you stay disciplined. And you trust that over time your savings will turn into real security. It feels responsible. It feels smart. But here's the reality most people never stop to question. If your savings account earns around 1% interest, it can take more than 7 decades for your money to double. 72 years. That's not growth, that's stagnation disguised as progress. Now zoom out to real life. The cost of living doesn't pause while your money crawls forward. Groceries that once cost $50 now vanish in a single trip. Rent inches higher. Utilities rise. Even a simple coffee quietly gets more expensive. You're still saving. Still doing what you were told was right, yet somehow everything feels tighter. That's not bad luck. That's the system working exactly as designed. What's happening is invisible at first. Your bank balance slowly increases, so it feels like you're winning. But beneath the surface, the real value of your money, what it can actually buy, is shrinking year after year. This is inflation, and it's relentless. When inflation runs at 4% and your savings grow at 1%, you're not gaining 1%. You're losing 3% in real terms. The danger is psychological. It doesn't feel like loss because the numbers go up. But that growth is an illusion. It's like climbing a staircase that's slowly sinking into the ground. You're moving, but you're falling behind. And because inflation compounds over time, every year starts from a weaker position than the last. This is why so many people reach retirement shocked and confused. They played by the rules, saved consistently, avoided reckless spending. Yet their money doesn't deliver the life they expected. Before solving this, you first have to see the illusion clearly. Here's a simple test you can run in your head in under 5 seconds, no calculator. No spreadsheets, that instantly tells you whether time is helping you or quietly working against you. Long before apps and algorithms, bankers relied on a powerful shortcut called the Rule of 72. And it's still one of the clearest lenses in finance. The idea is simple. Take the number 72 and divide it by your yearly rate of return. The answer tells you roughly how many years it takes for your money to double. That's it. If your money grows at 10% a year, 72 divided by 10 gives you about 7 years per doubling. At 6%, it stretches to 12 years. At 3%, it's 24 years. And at 1%, you're looking at most of a lifetime for a single doubling. This one number reveals what most people miss. Small percentage differences don't look dramatic on paper. But over time they completely reshape your financial future. Now make it personal. If you plan to retire in 25 years, ask yourself how many doubling cycles fit into that window. At 10%, you get multiple rounds of growth stacking on top of each other. At 4%, you barely clear one. That difference is massive. But here's the deeper insight. The Rule of 72 doesn't just measure returns, it exposes the single advantage that beats almost everything else, starting early. Imagine 2 people. Maya begins investing at 24. Putting aside a modest amount each month and earning strong long-term returns. Decades later, her consistency snowballs into serious wealth. Ethan, on the other hand, starts 10 years later with higher monthly contributions, yet ends up far behind. Why? Because time creates extra compounding cycles. Money that starts early gets more chances to multiply. Like planting a tree. The real growth happens quietly below the surface, and once it takes hold, it's unstoppable. Starting late is like planting a tree long after the growing season has passed. You can pour on more water, add more fertilizer, even work twice as hard, but you can never recover the years of growth you missed. That's why time is the only asset in investing that can't be replaced or purchased later. Once you accept that, the real question becomes, after planting the seed, where should it grow? And how do you balance speed with stability? Understanding compounding naturally leads to a second challenge, choosing the right engine for growth. Because not all places for your money move at the same pace. This is where our rule of 72 becomes incredibly useful again. A traditional savings account paying 1% means 72. Divided by 1, a painful 72 years to double. That's not wealth building. That's survival mode, and inflation eats a large part of it along the way. Step up to short-term government bonds earning around 5%. And now you're looking at roughly 14 years per doubling. Safer, yes, but still slow compared to the length of a career. Compare that to long-term stock market growth. Historically, broad market indexes have averaged close to 10% annually, cutting the doubling time to just over 7 years. That difference compounds dramatically over decades. Real estate sits somewhere in between. With appreciation and rental income combined, returns often hover around 8%, translating to about 9 years per doubling. On top of that, leverage allows investors to amplify growth using borrowed money, something few other assets offer so effectively. Then there are high-octane options like crypto, startups, and speculative assets. On paper, their returns can look unbelievable. But extreme volatility comes with a hidden cost. Most people can't stay invested long enough to benefit. That's why smart investors don't chase the fastest engine. They choose the one they can stick with through every market cycle. Smart investors don't treat their portfolio like a lottery ticket, they build it like a machine. Each part has a role. Stable components provide balance and protection. Faster-growing assets drive long-term expansion. Smaller, higher-risk pieces offer optional upside. This structure matters because a short doubling time only helps if you can stay invested long enough to experience it. Panic, volatility, or poor planning can break even the best strategy. But there's one force that can quietly sabotage everything if you ignore it. The real enemy isn't low returns. It's inflation. Silently stretching your doubling timeline while you're focused on surface-level gains. Here's where most people get misled. They assume that doubling their money means doubling their wealth. On paper, that sounds right. In reality, it rarely works that way. Imagine your investments earn 6% annually while inflation runs at 4%. Your account balance grows. But your real return, what your money can actually buy, is closer to 2%. Suddenly, that 12-year doubling becomes more like 35 or 36 years. Once inflation does its damage. This is why relying on nominal returns can create a false sense of security. Fees skim returns. Taxes slow growth. Inflation quietly does the most damage of all. Together, they push your goals further into the future while your statements tell a comforting story. So the real objective isn't just to double your money. It's to intentionally beat inflation. That means designing a portfolio that grows faster than rising costs, without keeping you up at night. For many people, that balance comes from combining stable, lower volatility assets with growth engines, like stocks or real estate assets that have historically stayed ahead of inflation. The goal isn't the shortest possible doubling time. You don't need a finance degree or fancy software to know whether your money is actually moving in the right direction. In fact, you can run a clear, honest check on your finances in under a minute using everything you've just learned. Start by listing your main buckets of money: savings accounts, bonds, stocks, real estate, maybe even crypto. Next to each one, write down its realistic long-term return, not the best-case scenario, but the number you can reasonably expect. Now comes the simple part. Apply the rule of 72, divide 72 by each return, and you'll instantly see how long it takes that money to double on paper. But don't stop there. This is where most people miss the real story. Adjust for inflation. If inflation averages around 3% and your investment earns 7%, your real return is closer to 4%. That real number is the one that actually shapes your future. Now compare those doubling timelines to your life goals. If you plan to retire in 25 years, but your money only doubles every 30 in real terms, that's a warning sign, not a failure, just feedback. The solution isn't always taking more risk. Sometimes progress comes from fixing small leaks, cutting unnecessary fees, reinvesting dividends, or shifting toward assets with stronger long-term growth. Once you do this exercise, something changes. You stop guessing and start seeing every financial decision as either speeding up or slowing down your compounding engine. That's the real lesson behind the rule of 72. Wealth isn't built by hype or shortcuts. It grows quietly through time, consistency, and direction. So here's your challenge. Take your expected return, divide 72 by it, and ask yourself, is that timeline good enough for the life you want? If not, it may be time to rebuild the engine. Because in the end, the most valuable asset you have isn't money. It's time.